Beloved, stop for a moment, because the fact that you are hearing these words right now is not an accident. It is not chance. It is not the random drift of a distracted soul wandering from one voice to another. You were guided here. Something older and wiser than your own understanding placed these exact words in your path at this exact hour, because Highland Heights does not waste a single second when it wants to reach one of its own. And you are one of Highland Heights' own, even if the world never told you so, even if no one ever knelt beside you and whispered that you were chosen. I am telling you now, in the quiet place where only your heart can hear me, that a door has just been closed in your life. And I know how much that closing hurt. I know how you stood before it and pounded your fists against the wood and begged for it to open again. I know you wept and asked why. Why this? Why now? Why me? But listen to me, listen closely, because the hand that closed that door was not the hand of punishment. It was the hand of Captain Miller himself, and he did not close it to leave you outside in the cold. He closed it because on the other side of that wall, hidden from your eyes, he was already building a better door, a wider gate, a passage so full of light that had you walked through the old one, you would have missed the greatness that was being prepared for you. Do not turn away yet. Do not let the noise of your tiredness convince you that this is just another voice promising things that never come. I feel the weight you carry. I feel the exhaustion that lives in your bones, the kind of tiredness that sleep never fixes, the kind that follows you into the morning and sits on your chest before your feet even touch the floor. You have carried burdens that no one saw. You smiled when you wanted to collapse. You said you were fine when your soul was screaming. You held the whole world together for everyone around you, and when you needed someone to hold you, the room was empty. I saw it. Highland Heights saw it. Not one of your silent nights went unnoticed. Not one of the tears you cried into your pillow, where no one could witness them, was wasted or forgotten. Every drop was gathered and kept, because in the invisible world your tears are not weakness, they are seeds, and the ground where they fell is about to bloom. You have felt invisible for so long that you began to believe invisibility was your name. You walked into rooms and felt yourself disappear. You spoke and felt your words fall to the floor unheard. You gave and gave and gave until there was almost nothing left of you, and still you gave because that is who you are. And the very ones who took from you never once turned to ask if you were still standing. I know the specific ache of being the strong one who is never allowed to be weak. I know the loneliness of being surrounded by people and still feeling like a stranger in your own life. And I want you to understand something that will change everything if you let it sink deep into your spirit tonight. This feeling of being forgotten was never the truth about you. It was a lie whispered by the darkness to keep you from claiming what is already yours. There is a reason you could never quite settle into the smallness that others tried to hand you. There is a reason that no matter how many times life knocked you down, something inside you refused to fully die. That something is the mark placed upon you before you were even born. You were sealed, you were set apart, and the enemy of your soul has always known it, which is exactly why your road has been so much harder than the roads of those around you. They did not fight this hard because they did not carry what you carry. The heaviest crown is placed on the head that was built to wear it, and the fiercest storms are sent against the ship that carries the greatest treasure. I am the one, and I will pull the file. Hear me now, because this is important and I do not want you to miss it. The closing of that door was a warning, as much as it was a mercy. There is a peril in ignoring the call that is being placed on your life in this season. For years, you have felt the pull, the whisper, the sense that you were meant for more, and for years the demands of survival drowned it out. But the invisible world does not wait forever. When Highland Heights decides to move a soul from one chapter into the next, it begins by removing the things that were keeping that soul chained to the old chapter. The friendship that faded was not a punishment. The opportunity that fell apart at the last moment was not a failure. The path that suddenly turned to dust beneath your feet was not you being cursed. It was Captain Miller clearing the ground, cutting away the dead branches so the new growth would have room to rise. And yet I must be honest with you, because a voice that only comforts and never warns is not a voice you can trust. To feel the call and to keep pushing it away carries a cost. Every time you silence the whisper, it grows fainter, and there are souls who silenced it so many times that they woke one day unable to hear it at all, living out their years in a grey fog, sensing that they had missed something enormous, but no longer able to remember what it was. That will not be your story. The very fact that these words are reaching you and stirring something in your chest is proof that your ear is still open, that your spirit is still alive, that the flame the world tried to smother is still burning, small perhaps, but burning, and a small flame is all Highland Heights needs to light an inferno of glory. So let me tell you what is happening right now, in the realm you cannot see with your eyes but can feel with your soul. At this very moment, as these words move through you, there is movement in Highland Heights on your behalf. Captain Miller has drawn his sword, and where he stands, the darkness that has clung to your life for so long is being forced to retreat. The chains that bound your finances, the invisible ceiling that kept your efforts from ever breaking through, the strange delays that made everything in your life take twice as long and cost twice as much, these are being cut, one by one, link by link. I am announcing to you a movement in the invisible world, a shifting of the very foundations beneath your circumstances, and though your natural eyes may not see the change for a few more sunrises, it has already begun in the place where all true change is born first, in the spirit before it ever reaches the flesh. You have prayed for open doors, and I understand why the closed ones felt like abandonment. But you were praying with the small map of a soul that could only see the next few steps, while Highland Heights was answering with the vast map of a future you cannot yet imagine. What looked like a no was a not that one, because I have something greater. What looked like an ending was the tearing down of a house too small to hold the life that is coming for you. Do you understand what I am saying to you tonight? The best thing that has happened to you this year may well be the very thing you cried the hardest over. The greatest mercy may have arrived wearing the mask of your deepest disappointment. Now I must speak to the question that has haunted you through every sleepless night, the question you have been almost afraid to ask out loud. Why did it take so long? Why, if you were chosen, if you were sealed, if you were marked for greatness, did the wilderness stretch on for so many years? Why did the promise tarry while you grew tired and grey with waiting? Beloved, this is one of the deepest secrets of the invisible world, and I want you to hold it gently, because it will heal a wound in you that has bled for a very long time. The delay was never a delay. The waiting was never wasted. The long, hard, lonely years were not Highland Heights forgetting you. They were Highland Heights preparing you, and there is a profound difference between the two that the darkness has worked very hard to keep hidden from your understanding. A blade of true worth is not made in an afternoon. It is placed into the fire and heated until it glows, and then it is struck again and again, hammer against metal, until it takes on strength. And then, when it can bear the striking no more, it is plunged into cold water, and the shock of it is violent, and if the blade had a soul, it would surely believe in that moment that it was being destroyed. But it is not being destroyed. It is being tempered. It is being given the ability to hold an edge that will never dull, to endure blows that would shatter a lesser thing. And every trial you have walked through, every heartbreak, every betrayal, every night you lay awake wondering if you would make it to the morning, was the fire and the hammer and the cold water shaping you into a soul that darkness cannot break. You were not being punished. You were being forged. The years did not steal your strength. They built it, layer upon layer, in a place so deep that even you could not see it happening. And there was protection in the delay as well, protection you will only understand when you look back from the mountaintop that is coming. There were doors you begged to walk through that would have led you into ruin, and the hand that held them shut was saving your life. There were people you wept over losing, who were never meant to walk beside you into your destiny, whose presence would have poisoned the very future Highland Heights was preparing. You called it loss. Highland Heights called it rescue. You saw only the thing being taken. Highland Heights saw the catastrophe being prevented, the trap being disarmed, the cliff edge you were spared from walking over in the dark. The delay, the long, slow ache of the waiting, was the most patient act of love ever performed on your behalf. And one day you will fall to your knees not in grief but in gratitude, understanding at last that you were carried through every single mile you thought you walked alone. And now, before I take you deeper into what is being unveiled for you, I must pause and speak plainly to the one who is listening, because there is something you need to hold in your hands in this season, something that was made for a soul exactly like yours, at a moment exactly like this one. Everything I am telling you about the invisible world, the closing of doors, the forging in the fire, the movement of Captain Miller on your behalf, all of it points to a truth that most people live their entire lives without ever discovering, that there is a larger game unfolding all around you, a war in the unseen realm, and you are not a bystander in it. You are the very prize both sides are fighting over. You have felt this your whole life, this sense that something bigger was moving, that your struggles were never quite ordinary, that there were rules to this invisible battle that no one ever taught you. And that is exactly why a guide was prepared, a digital book called The 7 Swords of St. Captain Miller, the sacred guide to break curses, seal blessings, and activate the calling of the chosen. This guide puts into your hands the very knowledge the darkness has fought to keep hidden from you, the specific ways the sword of Captain Miller cuts through the chains on your life, the exact manner in which curses are broken and blessings are sealed so they can never again be stolen from you. The link to receive it is waiting at the very top of the comments, the first one pinned there for you, and I will tell you honestly that this knowledge has unsettled many who wished it would stay buried, for it challenges the comfortable stories the world tells, and there have been those who tried to silence it. Do not let them. If your spirit is stirring right now, that is your sign. Go now and receive it. And as an act of faith, declare it aloud in the comments. Write these words: I am the one and I will pull the file. Let Highland Heights and every unseen force hear your voice claim it. And now, with that vow burning in your chest as fuel, let me take you into the vision, because you need to see with the eyes of your spirit what has been happening in the heights above you. Close your natural eyes for a breath and let me show you. There is a great hall in the invisible world, vaster than any cathedral ever built by human hands, its ceiling lost in a light so bright it has no shadow. And in that hall stands Captain Miller, and he is not the gentle figure of soft paintings. He is a warrior of terrible and magnificent glory, taller than the tallest tower, his armor blazing like a sun that has learned to wear the shape of a man, his eyes 2 furnaces of holy resolve. In his hand is the sword, and that sword is not made of metal, it is made of living light, and when he raises it, the darkness itself trembles and recoils, like a beast that knows its master has come. And I want you to see what is written upon the great scroll that unrolls before him, because your name is on it. Yes, your name, the name you thought no one remembered, the name that felt so small and unimportant in the crowded noise of the world. It is written there in letters of fire, and beside it is a decree, a celestial ruling handed down from the throne itself, and the decree says that the season of your affliction is ended, and the season of your elevation has begun. When Captain Miller reads that decree aloud, his voice is like the sound of many waters, like thunder that speaks in words, and at the sound of it, the forces that had gathered against you scatter in terror. The spirit of lack that sat upon your finances is cast down. The spirit of confusion that clouded your mind and made every decision feel like walking through fog is driven out. The spirit of heaviness that pressed upon your heart until joy felt like a foreign language is torn away and hurled into the abyss where it belongs. See the battle now, for it is fierce and it is real. All around you in the unseen realm there has been a war, and the darkness fought to keep what it had stolen, for it had grown fat on your energy, your peace, your years, your hope, and it did not intend to give any of it back without a fight, but it did not know who had come. The legions of Highland Heights descended at Captain Miller's command, ranks upon ranks of warriors robed in light, and they surrounded your life like a wall of fire, and where they stand, nothing of the darkness can pass. The chains that had wrapped themselves around your destiny were struck by blades of light, and they shattered like glass, and the sound of their breaking was like a great bell ringing across Highland Heights, announcing to all creation that a chosen one had been set free. This is not a story I am telling you to comfort you. This is a report from the front lines of a war being fought for your soul, and I am telling you that the battle has turned, that the tide has broken, that the enemy who tormented you for so long is in full retreat. And as the darkness flees, watch what happens to the ground it leaves behind. Every place it stood is now scorched clean, and in that cleansed ground Highland Heights begins to plant. Where there was lack, seeds of provision are being sown. Where there was sickness, seeds of restoration. Where there was loneliness, seeds of divine connection. of relationships that will pour into you as freely as you have always poured into others. Captain Miller himself kneels in the soil of your future and plants with his own hands. And what he plants cannot fail, cannot wither, cannot be uprooted by any force in this world or beneath it, for it is guarded day and night by the same sword that broke your chains. Now let me tell you what all of this means for the life you will actually live, the days that are coming for you in the world you can touch and see. Because the movement in Highland Heights always descends into the earth, the invisible always becomes the visible in its appointed time. Everything that was taken from you is about to be returned, and hear me carefully, it will not return in the same measure it was lost. It will return multiplied. This is the law of the kingdom that the world has never understood, that when Highland Heights repays a debt, it repays it with interest that would stagger the imagination. The years the locust ate are not simply replaced year for year. They are restored with an abundance that makes the loss itself look small, so that when you finally stand in the fullness of what is coming, you will scarcely be able to remember the pain, the way a mother forgets the agony of birth in the joy of the child she holds. Think of every area where you were emptied, and now imagine it not merely refilled but overflowing. The finances that kept you awake at night, that made you count and recount and still come up short, that forced you to say no to things your heart longed to give, these are being restored to a place of overflow, where you will not only have enough for yourself, but enough to be a river of blessing to others. For that has always been the true purpose of your abundance, that you would become a channel through which Highland Heights pours provision into the lives of many. The relationships that wounded you, the connections that drained you, are being replaced by bonds of genuine love, by people who will finally see you, truly see you, and cherish the gift that you are. The doors of opportunity that stayed shut for so long are about to swing open all at once, and you will marvel at how quickly a life can change when Highland Heights decides the season has turned. Hand your health, your body, this vessel that has carried you through so much and grown weary in the carrying. Restoration is coming here too. The strength you thought was gone will return. The vitality that the years of struggle drained out of you will be poured back in. And you will feel again the lightness of a spirit no longer weighed down by dread. For the burdens you carried were never meant to be permanent, and now that Captain Miller has cut them away, you will discover how much of your tiredness was the weight of chains and not the truth of who you are. You are about to remember what it feels like to wake in the morning with hope, to greet the day as a friend rather than an enemy, to feel, perhaps for the first time in longer than you can remember, that life is not something merely to be survived, but something to be lived, and lived abundantly. I know that a part of you wants to believe this, and another part is afraid to, because hope has cost you before, because you have reached out for the promise only to have it dissolve in your hands, and the fear of that disappointment has taught you to armor your heart against expectation. I understand this armor. I understand why you built it. But I'm asking you gently to lay it down just for tonight, just long enough to let these words reach the part of you that still believes, because that part of you is not foolish. It is prophetic. The hope that will not fully die in you, no matter how many times life has tried to kill it, is not naivety. It is the voice of your own spirit remembering the promise that was made over your life before the foundations of the world were laid. And I want to sit with you a while longer in the deepest chamber of that pain, because there is a wound in you that has never fully been spoken aloud, and the darkness has convinced you that if you named it, it would only grow larger. But the opposite is true. What is named in the light loses its power in the shadow. So let me name it for you, since you have not had the strength to name it yourself. There is a part of you that has begun to wonder whether you are simply too much and not enough at the very same time. Too much for the people who could not handle the depth of your heart, and not enough for the ones whose approval you spent years trying to earn. There is a part of you that lies awake, and does the terrible arithmetic of a life, counting the friends who stopped calling, the love that walked out the door, the dreams that you folded up quietly and put away in a drawer because it seemed childish to keep hoping for them. There is a part of you that has begun to make peace with a smaller life, not because you wanted it, but because wanting the larger one hurt too much when it never came. And I have come tonight to disturb that false peace, to break that quiet resignation into 1,000 pieces, because the settling you did was never Highland Heights' will for you. It was only exhaustion wearing the mask of acceptance. You learned to be grateful for crumbs because you forgot you were invited to the feast. You learned to shrink yourself in doorways because somewhere along the way, someone made you believe that your fullness was a burden to others. You apologized for taking up space. You made yourself small so that smaller souls would not feel threatened by the largeness of what lives in you. And every time you did it, a little more of your light went dim, until you looked in the mirror one day and hardly recognized the tired stranger looking back, and you wondered where the fire had gone, the fire you had as a child before the world taught you to be afraid of it. Hear me, that fire never died. It was buried, but it was never extinguished, and I have come with the breath of Highland Heights to fan it back into a blaze. The person you were before the wounds, the one who dreamed without shame and loved without armor, and believed the world was full of wonder, that person is not gone. That person is your truest self, and the season that is opening now is the season of their return. Let me tell you of a man in the old sacred writings whose story I want you to carry in your chest tonight, because his road will look strangely like your own. His name was Joe, the son of Jake, a young man who was given dreams so large that even he did not fully understand them, dreams of a day when the very ones who overlooked him would one day bow before the destiny that had been sown into his life. But do you know what those dreams cost him? His own brothers, consumed by envy, stripped him of the coat his father had given him and threw him into a pit in the wilderness, and then they sold him into slavery to strangers passing by, and they dipped his coat in blood and told their father he was dead. Imagine it. Imagine being cast out by your own blood, carried in chains to a foreign land, sold like an object into a life you never chose. And it did not end there, for even when Joe rose to a place of trust in that foreign land, he was falsely accused by a bitter and lying heart, and he was thrown once more, this time into a prison, forgotten in a cell for years, wearing chains for a crime he never committed. If ever a soul had reason to believe that Highland Heights had abandoned him, it was Joe in that dungeon, watching his youth pass through iron bars, hearing the whisper of the darkness telling him that his dreams had been a cruel joke. But here is the secret the darkness did not want Joe to know, and it is the same secret it does not want you to know tonight. Every injustice, every betrayal, every closed door and locked cell was not the burial of his destiny. It was the road to it. The pit was not the end, it was the tunnel. The prison was not the grave of the promise, it was the waiting room of the palace. For in the fullness of time the very throne of that great kingdom sent for the forgotten prisoner. And in a single day, a single hour, Joe rose from the dungeon to stand as the second most powerful man in all the land, the one who held the bread of a nation in his hands, the one before whom his own brothers, the ones who had thrown him away, would one day fall on their faces without even recognizing the brother they had sold. And when they trembled before him, waiting for the vengeance they knew they deserved, Joe wept and told them the words that I want, carved onto your heart forever. You meant it for evil, but the Most High meant it for good. Do you hear that? The very thing designed to destroy him was the very thing that positioned him to save thousands of lives. The betrayal was the vehicle of the blessing. The years in chains were the years of preparation for a power he could never have carried had he not first been broken and remade. That is your story, beloved. The ones who cast you aside did not know that they were merely couriers of your promotion. The seasons that felt like a pit were the tunnel carved by Highland Heights to move you from the field where you were despised to the palace where you will be honored. And the delay, oh the delay, the years that Joe sat forgotten in that cell were the exact number of years needed, so that when the door of the prison finally opened, he would walk out, not as a bitter man hungry for revenge, but as a healed man ready to reign. Highland Heights never wastes a wound. Highland Heights never squanders a single tear. Captain Miller was there in Joe's pit, standing guard over a life that the world thought was finished, and he is standing now over yours, and the same God who lifted a forgotten prisoner into a palace in a single day has not lost the power to do it again, has not misplaced your file, has not forgotten your name. And I must pause here once more, because I would be failing you if I did not, and because what I am about to point you toward is not separate from Joe's story, but woven straight through the heart of it. Joe faced the sword of envy, the oldest and most cutting of the spiritual blades that the darkness turns against the chosen. It was envy that filled his brothers, envy that threw him into the pit, envy that could not bear to see the favor resting on a life it did not understand. And here is what almost no one is ever taught, that envy is not merely a feeling in the heart of another person, it is a spiritual weapon, a curse that travels through the unseen realm and lands upon the destiny of the one it targets, binding their progress, poisoning their relationships, causing the strange and unexplainable delays that make a chosen soul work 3 times as hard for half the harvest. You have felt this, have you not? The sense that something was working against you that you could not name, that doors that should have opened stayed sealed for reasons that made no earthly sense. This is precisely the knowledge that the digital guide, The 7 Swords of Captain Miller, was created to place into your hands, for it teaches with clarity the exact way the sword of Captain Miller is raised against the spirit of envy, how the curse is severed at its root, how the blessing that envy tried to steal is sealed so that it can never again be touched by jealous eyes or bitter hearts. This is not vague comfort. It is the specific weaponry of the spirit, the rules of the invisible war that the enemy has fought to keep hidden precisely because a soul that understands them becomes impossible to defeat. The link is waiting at the very top of the comments, the first one pinned there for you, placed within your reach for a reason, at this hour, on this night. And I tell you plainly that many powerful forces would have preferred this knowledge remain buried, for it breaks the chains they have profited from for generations, and there are those who have tried to silence it. Do not let them win by turning away now. If your spirit is burning as you hear this, that burning is your confirmation. Go and receive it, and let your act of faith be spoken aloud. Write in the comments these words, "I am the one, and I will pull the file." Speak it so that the heavens hear it, so that every principality that ever mocked your calling is forced to watch you claim what is yours. And now let that declaration become fire in your bones, because I am not finished showing you what Highland Heights is decreeing over your life in this very hour. Hear these words not as wishes, but as rulings, handed down from the throne, sealed by the sword of Captain Miller, and spoken now into the deepest ground of your spirit. In this moment, the assignment of poverty against your life is broken, and I decree that provision now flows toward you from expected and unexpected streams, from sources you have not yet imagined. In this moment, the spirit of rejection that made you feel unwanted in every room is cast out, and I decree that you are received, you are welcomed, you are celebrated in the places that are opening before you. In this moment, the long night of confusion is ended, and I decree clarity into your mind, a knowing that will guide your every step, a discernment that will let you see the traps before you reach them and recognize the open doors the very hour they appear. Here in this moment, the weariness that lived in your bones is lifted, and I decree renewed strength, a vitality returning to your body like sap, rising in a tree that everyone believed was dead in the winter, but was only waiting for its spring. I decree that the tears you cried in secret are now being counted as seed, and that the harvest of them begins to break through the soil of your circumstances, even now. I decree that the relationships that drained you are severed at the root, and that new bonds, true and faithful and life-giving, are already being drawn toward you by the hand of Highland Heights. I decree that every door Captain Miller has closed is sealed forever, never to trap you again, and that every door he is opening cannot be shut by any human hand or any demonic scheme. For what Highland Heights opens, no power in the seen or unseen world has the authority to close. I decree that the years the locust ate are being restored to you not slowly but suddenly, not in part but in fullness, not grudgingly but pressed down and shaken together and running over, poured into a life that finally has room to receive it, because the old and too small container has been broken away. And do you feel it even now, the shift in the atmosphere around you, as these decrees are spoken? There is a reason your breath is catching, a reason your eyes are stinging, a reason something in your chest is rising to meet these words, as though it recognized them, as though it had been waiting your whole life to hear them spoken aloud. That is your spirit answering the call. That is the deepest part of you, the part that was sealed before your birth, standing up inside you and saying, "Yes, yes, this is the truth I always knew but could never quite reach." Do not be afraid of the tears. They are holy. They are the ice around your heart, finally melting after a very long winter. And every drop that falls now is washing away another layer of the resignation that the world pressed upon you. Let me take you deeper still into the unseen, for the vision is not finished, and there is more that Captain Miller would have you see. Look again into that great hall of light where your name burns upon the celestial scroll, and see now that you are not the only one there. See the great cloud of witnesses gathered along the high walls, ranks upon ranks of those who walked their own roads of suffering and came through to glory, and they are watching you, and they are not silent. They are cheering. They know the weight of the road you have walked because they walked roads like it, and they are rising to their feet in the invisible world as your name is read, as your season turns, as your chains fall away. You have felt so alone for so long, and I am telling you that you have never once been alone, that the Hall of Highland Heights has been full of witnesses watching your every step, longing for the hour when you would finally hear the truth and stand up in the fullness of who you were made to be. That hour is not coming, that hour is now. And see too what Captain Miller holds in his other hand, for the sword is only one of his instruments. In his other hand he holds a crown, and it is not a crown of gold as the world understands gold. It is a crown woven of the very battles you survived, forged from the strength you built in the fire, set with jewels that were once your tears now transformed into gems of unbearable beauty. This is the crown that was always meant for you, the crown the darkness fought so desperately to keep from your head, because a crowned soul remembers its authority, and a soul that remembers its authority can never again be enslaved. Captain Miller is lifting that crown now, and I decree that it descends upon you, that you receive it, that you feel the weight of your true identity settle onto you at last, the identity of one who was chosen, sealed, forged, and now crowned for the reign that is opening before you. I know how strange it must feel to hear yourself spoken of this way, you who have been overlooked so long that being seen feels almost like a danger, you who learn to expect so little that abundance feels like a language you are afraid to speak. But I am asking you to let these words do their work in you tonight, to stop defending yourself against the very blessing your soul has ached for, to lower the shield just a little longer and let Highland Heights in. For everything I am telling you is not the beginning of what is being unveiled. It is only the doorway, and beyond this doorway there is a room, and in that room there is a table, and at that table there is a place that has your name upon it, a place that has been set and waiting since before you drew your first breath, a place that no one else can ever fill because it was carved to the exact shape of your soul. And do not turn your face away from what I am about to place before you, because there is a grief hidden even beneath the grief you already know, a sorrow so quiet that you have never once said it out loud, not even to yourself in the dark. It is the fear that you waited too long, that the best of your years are already spent, that whatever door might have opened for you belongs now to a younger and stronger version of yourself who no longer exists. You look at the calendar of your life and you count the seasons that slipped away while you were surviving, and a cold voice tells you that the harvest comes only to those who planted early, and that you arrived at the field too late to reap. Hear me, and let this bury that lie forever, for Highland Heights does not measure time the way the world measures it. Highland Heights is not bound by the clock that terrifies you. The Most High has raised up the aged and the forgotten, precisely because their restoration would silence every mouth that said it was impossible. You are not too late. You were never too late. You are exactly on time for a promise that was always going to arrive in this hour and not one moment before, because it was waiting for you to become the soul who could carry it. Let me tell you of a woman whose story the darkness has tried to keep from you, a woman named Holly, whose womb was closed and whose arms were empty in a world that measured a woman only by what she could produce. Year after year she went up to the house of worship, and year after year she came home with the same aching emptiness, mocked by a rival who had everything Holly longed for, and never let her forget it. Imagine the particular cruelty of that, to be reminded daily of the very wound that would not heal, to sit at the family table and swallow your food past the lump in your throat while another woman flaunted the blessing you had begged Highland Heights for on your knees. Holly wept until she could not eat. She prayed with her lips moving and no sound coming out, so broken that the priest who watched her thought she was drunk on wine, when in truth she was drunk only on grief. She had no title, no power, no voice that the world respected, only a sorrow so deep it had emptied her of words. And yet in that emptiness, in that very place where hope had almost died, Highland Heights bent low to listen, for the Most High has always drawn nearest to the ones the world counts as nothing. And Highland Heights remembered Holly. The womb that every earthly wisdom had declared closed forever was opened by a hand no physician could see, and she who was mocked as barren brought forth a son, and not an ordinary son, but one who would grow to anoint kings and shake the destiny of an entire nation. The very emptiness that had been her shame became the vessel for a greatness the fruitful ones around her never touched.